over to you.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly, sir.
Very clearly, lecturer voice.
Very clearly. But yes, like I mentioned yesterday, please keep on with the lecturer voice because at some point, speakers usually reduce their voices and then we can't hear them at some point. So, sir, please give us that lecturer voice all through. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing me present my paper, even though there's small tension for me being the first presenter today, but I'll try my best to help and do my best, please. So, as a way of introduction, let me just go through, even though some speakers spoke about it already yesterday, but let me still go ahead. So, forensic evidence such as hair, blood, fingerprints are vital for criminal investigation, especially fingerprints, because no two individuals have the same fingerprints, even identical twins. So there are three types of fingerprints that can be discovered at the crime scene, which is visible or patent, impression or plastic, and latent fingerprints. Our focus will be on latent fingerprints. Latent fingerprints cannot be observed with the naked eye, but it can be made visible via several techniques, including the powdering method, which is the use of powder to enhance the fingerprint to make it more visible. So conventional fingerprint enhancement Hello, can you still hear me, please?
We can hear you now, sir.
Okay. So, like I was saying, conventional fingerprint enhancement materials in Nigeria are not easily available, expensive, and can be toxic. So in order to circumvent these issues associated with the conventional fingerprint enhancement material, alternative locally sourced fingerprint enhancement materials provide a better option in Nigeria. Like I said, because of exchange rate, importation, the expenses are high. So most times it affects the whole criminal investigative process. So I focused on organic and food powders that can be found in a typical Nigerian home, such as baking powder, wheat flour, and the normal custard that we take. I think that's made of cornstarch, moringa powder, rice flour, and grounded cinnamon. I still want to research and explore more organic and food powders, but these are the ones I've started with so far. So the powders that are used to enhance the fingerprints were used as purchased. That means I did not do any extra processing method. I did not heat it prior to using it. I did not store it differently. As I bought it from the market, that's how I used it. Fingertips were not washed prior to being deposited on non-porous surface. It's only non-porous surfaces I've focused on. That's glass and metal. I've not yet done anything on paper. That's porous surfaces, paper. Which is in the development and visualization of the fingerprints. You know, if you wash your hand prior to trying to take your fingerprints, most of the sebum and dirt, they makes it more visible. It will be more harder to visualize it, so they were not washed. Then the brush tip with powder was carefully dusted on top of the prints with the view of not destroying the fingerprint impression. Because according to what I read online, there are so many scenarios, so many times that because of trying to use the brush to now try and visualize the fingerprint more, sometimes the ridge impressions clears. And so I was trying to be very careful, although I did this process several times to ensure the best sample was taken. It was not just once that I did it that I took that sample. I tried several times to get the best possible sample of the fingerprints. So far, the corn flour, which is the custard, the rice flour, and the wheat flour produced clear results. The grounded cinnamon I tried wasn't too clear. And I think there's a reason for that. I'll dive into that. Well, like I said, the corn flour, rice flour, and the wheat powder produced clear results. It was reasonably clear, even though it was not 100%. I can say it was 80 to 90% clear. One thing we should note that for this thing to actually be accomplished, it is important that the mechanical adherence of the fingerprint powder to the moisture and oily components of the fingerprint. In other words, it just has to stick. We cannot use a powder that it will not really interact with the oils on the fingerprint impression. It needs to interact so that it will stick. Furthermore, the effectiveness of the powder to adhere to the fingerprint impression is dependent on the size of the particles that make up the powder. In other words, I think the grounded cinnamon I tried, the particles were not too small. Small and finer particles adhere more easily than the large coarse particles. If you're doing this experiment, you need to keep in mind that it's unless the particles are very, very finely grounded. If it's coarse and it's large, not large like stone or gravel, but at least maybe like a which example I use? Like a pinhead. Even pinhead is large, self. So smaller fine particles adhere more easily than the large coarse particles. Another important thing is that in this kind of experiments, chemical composition of the powder is also important because it has to be able to interact and bond to the chemicals present in the fingerprint deposit. So what this is practically saying is that my little knowledge of chemistry and biochemistry, positive and negative parts of two different substances, they are supposed to bond and interact, which makes it easier. It shows physically that, okay, even if they are bonding on a chemical level, on a atomic level, sorry, on a more atomic level, that's a tiniest level possible. They have to bond to that extent so that it will just show more clearly. Let me give you an example. It's like putting oil inside water. Oil and water doesn't mix together because they don't bond well. But if you put detergent inside water, it mixes more properly because they bond well. It's almost the same theory. The chemical composition of the powder and its ability to interact and bond to the chemicals present in the fingerprint. When I mean chemicals present in the fingerprint, I'm talking about the sebum, the oily components of your fingerprint. Is very, very important. Although I haven't finished my research and my experiment, at least I've gone far to an extent that I think there's been progress so far, and I will still complete it. The also important is that the contrast between the enhanced fingerprints and the background is vital. That means the white colored powder, like the rice flour that is white, the wheat powder that is white, it's better if you contrast it against a black dark background. It won't make sense after using a white powder to get the impression. You now still put it on a white background. You will just struggle with your eyes and you have eye problem if you do that. So the contrast is important. So I think even though my presentation was brief and everything, but I'm hoping at least the audience will understand how far I've gone, and I appreciate the research I've gone so far. There's still more to be done. I'm not going to lie. I still have to meet a biochemist to tell me which other chemicals, which other powders can bond with the chemicals present in fingerprints so that it will be more ideal for us to carry out this experiment. I believe I've covered everything for now, and I'm present and willing to answer any and every question presented towards me. Thank you very much for the time, please. Thank you.